All right. This is Jackie, and I'm here with Aaron of AWOLNATION. We are at the Fillmore Silver Spring on a lovely but dreary Saturday afternoon. Here Come the Runts recently came out, early February. What was the songwriting process for you this time around? Did it start with like a song lyric, a journal, a riff, or a little bit of everything?
I had a lot of time to sit down with my guitar. I live in Southern California, and we had a lot of rain last winter. It was a really beautiful winter, one of my favorites to date. And so I had a lot of time while I was getting my studio figured out um, to sit down and focus on the craft, kind of going back to the basics, like Christina Aguilera. That's the name of one of
That's
her
a
albums, right?
great reference. I appreciate that.
Anyways, to just go back to the roots of just a guitar and a melody and lyrics, and so I was able to sort of plan it accordingly. And then by the time the studio was ready to record and up and running, then I went in there very prepared, and I had different various journals all over the house that had bits and pieces of songs, some better than others, and a list of song ideas that I wanted to work on. So I was actually very organized, quite organized for the first time. Probably because I stopped smoking weed a little while ago. So nothing against it, but that was just the right move for me to get organized on this album.
And you mentioned Southern California. How was the location of the studio influential, either in your process or somewhere in the process?
Yeah, well, you're definitely, at least I'm heavily inspired and influenced by my surroundings. Even today in this dressing room, I may think of something, or the lighting or this couch may lead me down some sort of rabbit hole of the music I may want to listen later, and so forth and so on. So it's the same thing with writing songs for me, and um, the record definitely I think has a California dreamy vibe to it. And living up in the canyons and having a lot of nature around me was certainly a huge influence, and kind of cemented and nailed the idea that I wanted to move in a more organic direction and abandon a lot of the synth work from the previous two records. There's a little bit, but it just didn't feel authentic to have electronic sounding music when I was in such a natural environment.
Speaking of that authenticity, why was it important to keep the recording sort of pure and authentic without sort of the bells and whistles from the previous albums that you mentioned?
Well, there's still quite a bit of bells and whistles. They're just used with real players this time around. I was limited at best with my playing as a guitar player or drummer. So I would use Pro Tools in a lot of ways as its own instrument, and I still do that as a producer. But uh, I had the team effort in there with Isaac on drums and Zach on guitar, and I finally find myself in a position where I just really look up to the guys in the band and trust them to be a part of the recording process. So it was really fun, to sit back and push them, in as far as I could with different ways of approaching songs, because a lot of my songs and chord progressions are quite simple. But if you have a great player who knows how to provide different options of these chords and different phrasings, and voicings, it's really enlightening for me. So it was kind of like a new toy for me to play with in a lot of ways.
Excellent. So, how is Here Come the Runts an evolution of sound since Megalithic Symphony? Say that one 5 times fast. I cannot.
I knew when I came up with that title it wasn't going to be easy to say, and it's not easy for me to say either. Sorry, what was
But
that?
how is it an evolution of sound from the previous album?
Well, I'd like to think that it sounds better, and that I'm always improving. Not to diss on the first two records because I love them too for totally different reasons. But I think I'd like to think I'm growing, or at least I try to, and um, you know, I I think that it's a much more energetic record than either of the first two. Certainly more than the second, and a much more uplifting record. I feel like there's a lot more light in it and more hope than certainly than Run, and it just feels great to be on a third record too, to be able to play these shows and take a look at the set list and think, oh great, we can switch it up or pull from a little bit from the first album, maybe strip it down, have an intimate moment with the crowd, and instead of just having to be bombastic the whole time. it's more comfortable to be brutal the whole time, and you can kind of hide behind the power. But we're getting a little bit more raw on the set, and there's a lot more. It's a bit like a play now. There's this whole story that's being told, and different themes and other characters that kind of reappear and so forth and so on. It's been a lot of fun.
Sounds like you're finding ways to blend that punk rock aesthetic that you sort of grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the idea of hope, and I think for many people, the past year or two has been pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
How and where do you find your sources of hope?
Well, I try not to take it all too. I try my best to keep my surroundings more of a reality than anything else. So, with my family, my dogs, of course, my loved ones, my best friends, my wife, and everyone in between that matters a lot to me in my life. I try to focus on that because that's what I have the most control of, and I can touch it and see what's in front of me. If I turn on the news, I'll feel like the world ended yesterday, and so
They do a good job of making it feel like that.
it's quite pornographic, and and I don't mean in a fun sexual way. I mean like in a, it's a bit over the top, and even when something terrible happens, the focus is on some sort of insane solution right away, which can be a good, very positive thing, but um, it seems like, I mean, everything's just a business, right? So if you're if you turn on the TV and it just is red, right, and it says something extreme, you're gonna be scared and want to watch, right? So um, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't watch the news.
I was going to say
That's really
you,
what I'm trying to say.
we have the power to turn it off. We have the
Yeah,
power not to watch it, and
but
that's not always easy.
sometimes we don't. I went into like a gym the other day, and it was just just brutal, just sadness, all around, and that's it's important to feel that and take that in, and feel a sense of community and try to bond with people and find solutions, of course. But if you can, even in the hardest parts of my life, times where I thought that I didn't know how to go on, and felt like I was at hit rock bottom. If I could find a way to find the glass half full, even if it's actually like 10% full, but concentrate on that 10% that's left in this glass, I'm a little bit better off. So I guess that's the best way to approach, the 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 heaviness of the world today.
I think that's a good way to look at things.
I did my best,
I appreciate that. And many people turn to music when times get tough, and either it's a sense of for escapism or for distraction. What sort of music do you turn to, or have you been turning to lately?
I've been just really obsessed with old country music from the 70s all the way to even like early to mid 90s, and I just really love country music, and I never thought I would. I always liked the classics, of course, right? But I didn't realize how many great underground artists there were, and um, being a kid who loved hip hop in the '80s, pop music, metal, hardcore, punk rock, alternative, of course, just in good old fashioned rock and roll. And even folk music. Country never was for me for whatever reason, and over the last 5 years, I've just really fallen head over heels in love with it in a lot of ways. And my buddies are in this great band called Midland that are really taking over the modern country scene, and they're doing things. They're coming from the right influences, I think, too. So it's fun to root for them, and I'm just a big fan of country music now. It's crazy, all good rock and roll songs and good songs could be covered as a country song in a lot of ways.
I could definitely see that happening. Right on. So getting back to your music, you recently released videos for Handyman and Passion. Who came up with the treatments for those visuals, and why is it so important to pair the visuals with the right visuals with your sound?
Well, it's really important, but it's not always executed right. There's been so many video ideas that look great on paper, but then when I go to, see the end result, I'm like, oh, this is not what I was hoping for. In this case, though, I was really pleased with these videos, and a buddy of Isaac and mine, my drummer, his name's Robbie, and he made both those videos. Did a great job, and it was a collaborative effort, and he spent some time doing a bit of some documentary work for the making of the record, and so he was kind of behind the scenes and around, and I got to trust him and have a pretty good relationship with him. So when it came down to make these videos, I feel like we were kind of on the same page. And the passion video is a no-brainer. I mean, we got lucky enough to have Og, the skater, show us his life and his passion, and so that was a blessing. And then the handyman video was, I was worried that it was going to be a bit cheesy for sure when when I was talking to Robbie about it, but he did such a good job of making it pretty endearing and authentic, I think, and honest. So a lot of emotions in there. A lot of people have cried when they've seen that video. My friends that I would never expect that sort of text from, even friends that are a bit kind of love to hate a little bit, on whatever's going on, and they were affected by it in a positive way. So it was nice to have a video that just had a good ending for once. That they end up together in this video, and it's kind of nice. The opposite of most movies, I suppose, or the news.
Yeah, on TV, yes. Yeah. Visual media is pretty important. I think your YouTube channel also includes Alfie Story. Why is it important to highlight stories in the oral tradition in kind of a new and inventive way?
Well, it was just new content. I mean, I had so many different ideas going into this record with the runts, the concept of these different characters, and the idea of trying to share what you're passionate about. 7 Sticks of Dynamite, the song, about chasing that rabbit down the rabbit hole of life that we're all trying to chase and pretty much never find or capture. And so going into the record, I was really passionate about it and extremely proud, and wanted to come up with as many extra visuals and moments for people to grasp onto. So if someone discovers an AWOLNATION song, whether it's something from the first, second, or third, or this record, it's as if they're coming into an open house and the house is already furnished. So it's important to do as much of that as I could before we started touring, because it becomes harder to make music videos and have planned content once you're on the road. You kind of just are, you have these schedules and press for a certain amount of time, sound check, and then, it's a pretty strict schedule that keeps you kind of like a Groundhog's Day a bit,
I can only imagine. Yeah. So 2017 and 2018, music streaming has become really ubiquitous. How do you measure success? What is success for you these days?
I mean, hearing your song on the radio is pretty wild, that's a big part of it. Not that I try to write songs that will be on the radio only, but I know that the tunes I write, like them or not, are usually catchy and stick in your head. So luckily, we'll always have a chance at that. But I think it's just playing. For me, success is measured in playing packed shows. They don't have to always be sold out necessarily, but as long as people are crammed together pretty good, and there's this sort of energy bouncing between them and us, and they sing along the words, and you can feel that there's an emotion. That's the ultimate success to me, and especially when we meet some of these fans and they're affected in such a positive, emotional way by the lyrics, and I met a kid the other day in New York that said that, I'm not going to share too much about what he said, but I'll say that the first album, got him through this impossible time, right? And then he had a tattoo, and I hugged him and we both cried. It was insane, because music does that for me, right? Music has got me through any really difficult time in my life, and continues to. It's there for celebration. It's there as therapy. It's there on your wedding day. Alanis Morissette, almost lyric, almost, but not quite.
But not too ironic.
Yeah, not too ironic, which isn't even irony, is it?
No, that whole song
yeah.
is terrible.
But I loved that record when it came out. And then I met Glenn Ballard, the guy who did her record, when in one of my last bands, and his loft was all white piano, and he had framed large photos of himself all over the studio. So we knew it wasn't going to be right for us. And our band failed anyways, but fun little side story.
Well, but you mentioned music as a platform, and your music is also a platform. Tell me a little bit about this accessories line and its purpose.
For the dogs?
Yes.
Yeah, so, you can find out all the information, the specifics on our website, of course. But in a lot of natural disasters, or almost all, the thing that gets one thing that's important to me that is often overlooked is, you know, a lot of animals go without homes, you know, because you have to take care of your family, you have to take care of yourself as humans, usually first, and there are so many dogs that don't have owners now, and you know, the Houston hurricane, that was a little ways back now, but there were so many dogs that needed food in different shelters, and then the Ventura fires that we had really near our house, and I mean, my wife and I wanted to bring every dog to our house and foster them, you know, and she gets a bit carried away sometimes. I'll just come home, I'm like, who are these three puppies that I'm already in love
They're
with?
our new friends.
Yeah, and I don't get to keep them. That's BS, you know. So I'll have names for these guys and stuff, and then of course someone will end up taking them to a home, you know. Um, and you know, and I always like to try to encourage people to rescue dogs when they can. Of course, every dog needs a home, but rescue dogs and also, you know, older dogs are pretty cool too. You know, even the ones that really need help that are you know, in the fourth quarter of their life, they're incredible as well. They're so sweet. Um, I think you know, us Americans usually want a specific kind of bred dog and so forth and so on. And I don't know. I just think that you know, if you get some sort of a runt or a mixed breed, I've found that they tend to be more like appreciative. It seems, you know, the spirit in their soul. They're like, oh my God, I'm still alive. You picked me. Wow. You know, that's been my experience because I've had both growing up. You know, and yeah, so I encourage people to rescue when they can.
And so the accessories line goes to those different rescues.
Everything I just mentioned. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So 2018 is shaping up pretty big. What is up next that you're allowed to talk about, if anything?
Oh, I could talk about anything you'd like. You know, we're just on tour now. We're just getting started, and then go to Europe, come back to a lot of radio festivals and different various festivals throughout the summer, and you know, that's basically it. You know, we're just trying to stay as positive as we can, and um, you know, there's just been an overwhelming reaction to this record. There's been a lot of love. That is, you know, I guess something that seems a little bit different from the first two records. There was a lot of love, don't get me wrong, but there's just been so much positivity on this album, and it's been received better than anything I've ever done before. So I'm just kind of overwhelmed by it and feel this heavy weight to make sure that at these shows that we give our very best and make sure that it's evolving and we're all getting better. Each night after we play, I always ask, I go, was that our best? Did we finally play a show that was perfect? And we have not yet. And I just mean like the smallest detail, whether it's stopping a part and someone rings out just for a second long, or a guy forgets this one little vocal, or you know, there's a tone that is like feeding back in the wrong kind of way, and you know, so we're just chasing the idea of perfection, and I don't think it'll ever happen. And honestly, you know, that's not even what I love about music. I like the raw elements and some of the mess ups, but we're just trying our best, you know, to really take it to the next level. And the guys in the band are so incredible, such great musicians. They've put in the work. They practice for billions of hours, you know, growing up, and now being in a situation where I'm throwing a lot of different ideas at them constantly, and we're trying to, on the spot, you know, create new content on stage and new parts. They can hang, and it's just so fun. It's a challenge.
Well, I'm glad you all are having fun.
Yeah.
Be sure you will have fun too on AWOL Nation's tour. This is Jackie. Thanks to Chorus FM and In the Key of Change.